has Education Chat been doing in the past year? Well, I'm here to recap that and much more. Welcome to Education Chat's fifth season, first episode, 2024 recap. Hello, everyone. My name is Natalie Hinton, and I am your host for Education Chat, a podcast by students for students in the Inland Empire. And welcome to the premiere of Education Chat's fifth season. Last season, Education Chat premiered 10 episodes highlighting the true raw experiences of students in the IE. I was able to sit down with a variety of students, professors, and educational leaders that all had their own unique experiences when it comes to schooling. And today, we will be recapping all the episodes from 2024. Using little to no cuts, I will be going through the catalog of episodes and discussing my favorite parts, while also giving you a bit of behind-the-scenes knowledge. I also hope this will allow you as the audience to get to know me a little bit more as your host. So if you are a longtime fan of Education Chat or someone who is joining me for the first time, thank you for supporting myself, Education Chat, and growing Inland Achievement. Let's jump right into it. All right, so right now I am on Growing Inland Achievement's YouTube channel. I just go ahead and I go on the Education Chat playlist. If you guys didn't know, Education Chat is also available on Spotify, so if you rather choose to just listen to it just through audio, that's a great alternative also. But we're just gonna go ahead, take a look at some of the episodes. I'm gonna point some things out, tell you a bit about how I made it, and I hope you guys enjoy. So this was my first ever episode. It was made 10 months ago, February 28th, 2024. It is crazy how the time flies. And this was my first episode. I just recently joined Growing Inland Achievement through this internship, and I was thinking about all these kinds of educational topics to talk about. And it was so hard picking one. I was thinking about maybe I'll do something about, trying to stay healthy. And that kind of sparked this idea because it was either I wanted to talk about nutrition or I wanted to talk about keeping your body fit. So eventually I narrowed it down. I was like, let's do nutrition and make this an awesome first episode for season 4. And it's important to mention that even though this was my first episode I made, there was still 3 previous seasons that I had to live up to. Alyssa and Alicia did a fantastic job with Education Chat in the past. And if you haven't seen any of their episodes, I definitely recommend you check them out because some of these topics are super important, and some of them I even revisited just because of how inspiring they were. So honestly, I had a lot of big shoes to fill. But let's go ahead and see this intro really quick.
And I am your brand new host for Education Chat, a
That's
podcast by
me.
students.
So that's me. I mean, this episode is super duper near and dear to me. It's the first one I ever made, so it has a special place in my heart. I was still trying to figure out things, like you can tell the audio's a little bit quiet.
Students for students in the Inland Empire. As we jump right,
I was still trying to figure out how to audio balance and all those things. It's kind of a plain text where it just says my name. But I thought the content of this episode was really important because
into
I
the new
was
era.
able to speak to a bunch of different people just in this episode. So right here, this little segment, I got to speak with some of the students at Crafton Hills College, and I just talked to them about their eating habits. Like, what do you guys actually have like for breakfast in the morning? Do you feel like your body is fueled? So I got to talk to 3 other people. So this is Derek, this is Freddie, and this is Link. So I got to speak to them, learn little bit more about their eating habits, and they all had very different ones. Like Frederick said he would wake up and just eat 5 eggs, and I thought that was really interesting. But it was cool to see how everyone fuels themselves differently. And then I got to speak to Liliana. So she was a district nutritionist for the Yucaipa Cal Mesa school district. So for any of the high schools, middle schools, and elementary schools, she was the one making sure that all of their school lunches were nutritious. And she had so much good information on just how to make a balanced meal, because that's something that a lot of people don't get the education for anymore. You just kind of have to go to the grocery store and guess. But she talked about the 5 food groups, how they fuel your body, and she gave us some really important information. And then I also got to go visit the food pantries at Crafton Hills College. So I went to Crafton for 5 semesters. It is near and dear to me. It's my community college. And I thought the food pantry was such a cool idea because they did a grab and go lunch pack. And that means that you get to grab a snack, a drink, and like a little tiny little meal you could have. And I know that helped so many students just on that campus alone. And I thought that was really cool. And that's something that more people should know about is that a lot of their campuses have food pantries. I pretty much every single college in the Inland Empire but one has a food pantry. So if you're going to one of those, please, please, please go check out your food pantry. All right, so we're going to move on to revisiting the realities of student parents. So this episode, I got to speak to Martine and Linda, which are two people I got to know at Crafton. Martine, I met him in my communications class and he introduced himself and he said, "Yeah, I do track, I have twins, I have a wife." And I was like, "This guy is so busy. I don't know how he does it all." So I invited him on to come and share a little bit about his story and how he also just graduated with honors. He has his two little twin babies there. And I think he had another kid on the way also. So I think what student parents do is just like superpowers. And I wanted to go ahead and just show this clip of Linda because Linda was someone I met in my biology class, and me and her clicked right away. Even though she's like 20, 30 years older than me, she like has just this wonderful sense of humor. And again, she has her own business that she's running. She has all her kids and her grandbabies, and she is just an incredible force. And this moment in the podcast just really made me like well up. I almost started crying myself. So take a look.
I think that people need to overcome the fear of, you know, what if I failed, what if I couldn't do this. And that fear, it's been 2 years. Everyone told me you could take your time. What are you rushing for? I wanted to prove myself I can do it in 2 years. And to show my boys, and to show my grandbaby who now lives with me that anybody can do it. And if I can do it at 50, then they better do it at 18 or 19. Because doing it at my age is no joke. But I did it, and like I said, anybody my age can do it. It should take discipline and
Yeah, and each of their schedules were so insanely packed, where it was just sun out, sun up to sundown. They were doing something that made themselves better in their education. And I honestly, they inspire me, and I really look up to them. And they both now graduated. I know Martine, he's going to be getting his master's soon, which is super exciting. And I know that Linda used her degree to continue running her small business. So they're both just two incredible forces. And they also talked a little bit about like the daycares on campus were also something that helped, especially for Martine since he had younger kids. So that was an episode that meant a lot. But on to celebrating and supporting LGBTQ plus students. So I did this in the month of April, since that June is not typically in the catalog year for a lot of schools. A lot of schools decide to celebrate April to kind of highlight their LGBTQ plus students on their campus. So I was able to go ahead and meet with Ross Darlings, who was the president of the GSA on our campus. And they had really great insight on just being a queer student and talking a lot about their identity and how they figured out who they are in themselves, their sexuality, their gender, and also what they feel like needs to be changed on this campus to make it more accepting for the students. And one thing they pointed out was more gender neutral bathrooms. So I just wanted to highlight that. But I also gave through and I gave some more tips on how to be a better ally to any LGBTQ plus students. One of my favorite tips is really simple, just putting your pronouns in your bio because it helps other, trans students and trans faculty know that you are a safe person and that pronouns are nothing to be ashamed of. Everyone has them and we all need to talk about them and say, "Hey, here are mine." So other people who may have pronouns like they, them that others may look down upon, they just seem more normal in the scheme of things. So I recommend that. But yeah, it was a great interview with Ross. I know they were doing veterinary medicine. I haven't spoke to them since this episode passed, but I would love to do another catch up with them. But I also, if you're someone who doesn't really quite get LGBTQ plus, people who are of that community, this is a great episode, I'd say, to just kind of introduce yourself to that. Because Ross really talks about in depth, like how did they figure out this was their identity and how did it cause them to be treated? They share a little story about how their teacher, treated them horribly just because of their gender identity. So I definitely check that one out. And then moving on to career technical education for high schoolers. I know I don't want to pick a favorite episode, but this has got to be one of the ones I love doing most because I got to speak with so many people. And I got to do so many things. So I spoke with Kevin Bebo, who talked a little bit about the career and technical education program. So it's at Desert Sands Unified School District. And they have over 25 programs where you can learn to be a chef or learn how to dance, which is what I featured, be a nurse, be, a truck driver, a bunch of different things that were so cool that high schoolers had the opportunity to access to. But I wanted to do the dance program specifically as an art student myself, and Christina was so awesome to work with. She was so willing to work with me. She helped me get connected to her students, and I just wanted to show a fun little clip that I decided to keep in. So let me go to the timestamp here.
Well, speaking of someone that didn't know what CTU was, I think it's a very valuable thing to look into, especially if you have a career path that you're really passionate about. If you're looking into a dance program like mine, oh, sorry. So if you're
So that was a funny moment I decided to keep in because everything we do on Education Chat is real. These are real people at real schools doing this actual stuff. And Christina did hers while she was, still trying to teach her kids. And I just thought that was wonderful. And this episode was so cool being able to speak to, these senior high schoolers that had completed the program and they were about to go on and have their senior capstone. And I got to go out there physically to this college or to this high school, forgive me. But I went to the Arts Dance Academy in Palm Desert High School. And that was just so much fun that I was willing to just go in and go see them dance. And they were so incredibly talented. Like, look at this.
three delivered an incredible performance with immaculate technique, and Victoria and Riley were right about the variety. Each performance offered something different. It showed that each of these dancers are not just locked to a style. They had a chance to learn hip hop, ballet, show tunes. But my favorite performances were probably the contemporary ones. They each had a beautiful message, and it was incredible watching every dancer do what they're passionate about.
So I really loved doing that episode just because I got to be so involved with it and get to know everything about this little program and even just about the other CTE programs too. So that one was a lot of fun to make and a lot of fun to edit and just I enjoy that one and I always come back with fond memories of that one. So that was the fourth episode I made. So I was part of the honors program at Crafton Hills College, and a lot of different colleges in the IE, they have these honors programs. So I wanted to go ahead and highlight what exactly they are. Oh, and here's me with my pink hair. It also showed, I had a lot of hair changes with this season of Education Chat. So you'll see me with short hair, pink hair, different things. And it kind of shows how much time took into each episode. So you'll see that in an interview for this episode, I have my long normal hair, and then I have short hair, and then I have pink hair. So it shows that some of these episodes take a while to make just because of different things like scheduling or just making sure you want it to be the best it can be. So that's a little highlight. But as someone who joined the honors program, I wasn't quite sure what it entailed. So I was able to speak with Judy, who is my honors ambassador and coordinator, and she just sat down and said, what are the benefits and what do you need to do to actually join? Because some of them have specific requirements depending on your school. Some of them are more difficult than others, but for the one at Crafton, it was simply just taking an honors course, which included the same materials as every other course with an added benefit. So that might be more assignments or a big project you have to do at the end. It also involved volunteer hours, just participation points, so going to events. And it's a great program if you're at a community college and you want to transfer. Plus, it can also give you different kinds of benefits. So I also got to speak with Ricky. I met him in my one of my drama classes on campus. And he's going to UCLA right now, which is really awesome to see. He's studying sociology. And I love just seeing little like snippets of him just getting that success. And he definitely said that the honors program helped him get there. But hearing about his background as also an ambassador, a student ambassador, he had a little bit more responsibility than most honors students do. And then I also spoke to Amr, and he was super cool. He's so smart. And he had already graduated from the honors program, and he talked about how that led him to success when it came to going on to UC Riverside. So I would definitely check that this episode out if you're into, anything just above and beyond what education is, because my experience in the honors program was also great, but what they shared was so much more intense because they were so much more involved with it than I was. So now I'm going to go on to the benefits of volunteering. So at a lot of colleges in the IE, there is something called College Corps. And College Corps is a program where you get to do volunteer hours, but also get a stipend from it. So you're able to give back to your community while also being compensated. And I got to sit down and talk to Darcy. She was the director of College Course at Riverside Community College, and she was just such a wonderful guest to have. She was so well spoken, she knew exactly everything about the program, and she helped talk about why volunteering is so important when you're a student. I got to meet her at GIA's Tour to Shared Vision conference, and she was so nice to meet in person, and I can't wait to connect with her again. And then I also sat down and spoke with Brenda, which was one of the students who was actually part of College Corps. And she talked about how it helped her get through her education and give back to her community, and how that's going to help her within her education. So, volunteering is super important also just on your resume at that perspective. So, I thought this episode was super cool to just be like, volunteering is important, but also how can you do that if you need to work to keep funding your education? Because I know that was a problem that I had. But being able to do something like College Corps and get that stipend, you can volunteer while also doing that. So I really wanted to amplify that and let people know this is an option for a lot of colleges in the IE. So next up is UC versus CSU. So right now I'm currently studying business administration at Cal State San Marcos. And one of my biggest things when I was at Crafton and trying to figure out where to transfer to was what is the difference between UCs and a CSU school? Because they have a lot of like interconnecting things. It's almost like a Venn diagram, but it's like what are in those outside circles that you need to know about? So I got to sit down with Strawberry and Isabel, both two good friends of mine. And they talked a little bit about how they went through their education at their different schools. Both of them being physics majors was something that was also super important to me because since they're the same major, they can talk about, maybe this was a little different than how it was at this school. But there are some important highlights here. For example, like most people know that the UCs they go by quarters and then the CSUs go by semesters, but it also talked about how does that workload affect the way you learn? How like do you live on campus? Is there housing? Are you more of a commuter student? What kind of people are on your campus? Is there a lot of clubs? What about the social life? So if you're someone who's trying to figure out what college you want to get into, I definitely recommend watching this episode because I personally didn't know all the differences. And when I did, it helped me make a much more informed choice about going to Cal State San Marcos because of all the different things that were compared to a UC versus a CSU, plus different majors it provides too. A lot of the UCs, they do not have anything related to business administration. So if you're into business, Cal State is a great option. Oh, we also talked a little bit about CalBridge, which is one of the programs that Isabel was a part of that just gave her a lot of benefits. I'm not going to get too much into it, but if you want to know about CalBridge and you're in a STEM field, I definitely recommend you check this episode out. And moving on to learning through mentorship. I don't know if you remember that I mentioned Alyssa at the beginning of this episode, but I was able to sit down with her and talk a little bit about her experiences doing this internship and then going on to be my mentor. So she was one of the reigning founders of this podcast, and she built it up to what it is today. And I had to go ahead and take that from her hands and make it something new and fresh, but something that also had the same feel and had the same message that we wanted it to be. So I talked about how important it was to have a mentor like her in my life, as well as how other people can get a mentor and just have someone to guide them through what they're doing, whether it's a professor, a parent, someone who's knowledgeable in their field and can lead them. It honestly has changed the game in how I do things. And I want to thank Alyssa for always being there for me. We have our weekly check-ins, and she has been guiding me so kindly through this whole process. And I wouldn't be able to do it without her and all the help because, I took education chat not having much knowledge about how to run my own podcast and reach out to students, but she led me all through the way. So if you ever want how to get a mentor, this is the episode for you. Oh my gosh, we're going to be finishing soon. So next up is the student guide to networking. So, as a new business student at a university, I have learned quickly that networking can really help you in whatever you're trying to do. Whether that's to get an internship, maybe to try and get a better grade in a class, trying to make a presentation. Being able to know certain people who can help you with that can change your life. And I got to go ahead and speak with Jess, and she was just incredible. I saw her at Toward a Shared Vision also, and she spoke, and she was so well spoken. And I was like, I need to talk to her and figure out how she did that. How did she network her way to be able to speak at this conference, and how does she have those skills? So I sat down and I talked with her, and my favorite thing she said was that your network is your net worth. And that's something that I really learned is true when it comes to whatever you're trying to do in life. If you know the right people, you can do the right things. So she gave some great tips on just how to have that confidence, how to keep a network, because sometimes you can meet a lot of people, but how do you stay with them? And it was a great time being able to speak with her. We both had a lot of like shared experiences when it came to networking and speaking with others. So it was super great to sit down and meet with her. And finally, last but not least, is the season 4 finale of Education Chat. So this is Balancing Act of Student Athletes. And this episode, whoa, the amount of time I put into this last episode, you can tell it's quite long. It is 40 minutes compared to the other ones that tend to be around the 20, 30, 10 range. I, this episode took me over 2.5 months to do from start to end because I spoke with 5 different people, one of those being the director of athletics at CSUSB, but then also 4 different student athletes who all had their own sports, whether it was track, softball, golf, track and field. It was insane. It was such a fun episode to be able to go ahead and do because you have so many different perspectives on what it is like being a student athlete. And all of our guests, they just did a fantastic job just showing what it's like to be them. And even though they're all student athletes, they all had their own experiences and struggles. A lot of them mentioned time management, but they also had some of their own unique ones, like how to balance having a social life, how to just get your work in on time and balance everything else. So I would definitely give this episode a watch. I put a lot of time and effort into just speaking with everyone, getting to meet them. We have a couple of little like action shots too. But honestly, I have to give a big thank you to CSUSB's athletics department because they helped me through every step of the way when it came to making this episode. It would not be possible without them. And I don't want to give too much away because this is the season finale. So if you want to get prepared for anything, season 5 and above, I would say take a good look at this episode because this is kind of what I want to continue doing for the future. I want to get as many guests as I can that can share their experiences and how every single student is different and unique, and they go through all sorts of these different things. And I hope that I can just continue making things in the future that help, make everyone feel inspired and just make Education Chat the best it can be. So thank you for going ahead and watching this recap with me. With the new season comes new ideas, and I hope that you will all enjoy what is in store for the future of this podcast. Stay tuned for even more content from Education Chat that will inspire, entertain, and inform you for the rest of 2025. Thank you for watching this recapturing episode of Education Chat, and I hope to chat with you again soon.